Hey, is it too high?
Yes.
Ah, we need a chair. How's that? That's better, isn't it? Yes.
Thank you very much. It's been wonderful to see so many people here that are all from the complex medical background. So I'll just go through a few bits and pieces before I hand over to Patrick to talk about our first bit of information that we have. So if anybody needs bathrooms or anything like that, they're just down the hallway, just down here. We will be having dinner around 6 o'clock. So that'll be time for us to stop talking and actually start networking a little bit more. And then we'll just go from there, basically. So we'll have a few presentations tonight. We just want to talk a little bit about the nursing background and what intensive care at home is able to do from a nursing point of view, support coordination point of view. I think Trevor was going to have a little talk about on the spot. And then Denise was also going to have a bit of a chat about the nursing perspective from her end as well. So, yes, thank you very much for coming along. Maybe I need to hold it. Yeah. So I'll hand it over to Patrick, and we can have a chat. Put the chat slides up.
Yes, that's good. Well, thank you, Amanda, for the introduction, and thank you, Denise, to this event today. Thank you for coming to the event. We appreciate it. I think I can already see the people who are walking in that we've got the right people in the room because we recognize each other, so that's a really good sign. Just a little bit about, intensive care at home for those of you who don't know enough about intensive care at home, for those of you that don't know our journey. I started this business in 2012. I recruited parents of background. I was doing similar type of work in Germany way back when I was part of setting up in Germany, so in the early 2000s. Then I've been traveling to the UK, heading to Australia, and what I could see when I was working in ICU as a CCRN, there are patients in ICU that we would look after at home in Germany. Right? That's sort of, I could see when I was in Australia. No idea how the funding would work, or if there wasn't funding. That was in 2012. No talk about SAPs, all I knew was that there's a need for well-utilizing patients to go home instead of, talking about end of life or palliative care that patients don't have any quality of life. And I knew quite a quality of life at the moment, at least for some patients. So that's sort of where I got started in the days. That was in 2012. The doors were very much closed in the early days. Nobody wanted to know about intensive care at home. Eventually, the doors opened in 2014, and we started with our first line in Melbourne, funded by the TAC. For those of you who don't know what the TAC is, the Transport Commission, similar to IKEA in New South Wales. We put down all pretty quickly. There was a client who was basically going back to ICU all the time because he was ventilated. C1 finally was resigned, basically ventilated. I know some of you guys know this guy, but and we proved out that pretty quickly. He never went back to ICU and free solving and sending CSRs there. Proved them all pretty quickly. Then, word spread. Other clients, there was the Department of Health funding at the time in Victoria that eventually rolled over to the NDIS. When the NDIS came in 2019 and started fundraising there, we were growing then before the NDIS, but with the NDIS funding, this is pretty much doubled fairly quickly. And then COVID hit. The business grew even faster. ICUs were overflowing and who wants to be in hospital before COVID, let alone during COVID. So that's a little bit of the journey in terms of how we got here. I was want to mention before I just want to say a big thank you to the people who are here today to have this on the road with more than half yards every day. Big thank you to our admin team, to our website team. So there's a lot that's going into what we do on a day-by-day basis, and it wouldn't happen if the people that are not here today. So we can't forget what's happening behind the scenes as well as what's happening out of the role. Fast forward now to 2024. We're now states, biggest fan bases in Victoria, where we have a growing employment and staff base in Sydney, now thanks to Denise, who's growing and leading the team here, and our client base. We have a small client and staff base now in Brisbane, and we just started with our first client in Adelaide months ago. So very small city. But let us start somewhere. The good news there is whether it's in Sydney, Brisbane, or another, that sort of all came organically. It wasn't that, I was spending a lot of time in those cities and we tried to generate business. It just seemed to come naturally, which is good. And now with the nurse manager here, and also now just hired a small coordinator here, Rosie. That's Rosie. We think we can grow our client staff base further. We also have plans to go into WA. It's probably not quite there yet, but we'll see what our next steps are in WA. I think what makes us unique is, there's a lot of PDS providers out there who put their website, they're sending support workers, they're sending nurses, they're on the law and doing support coordination, doing everything. Whereas all we do is send critical errors to the home regulation trackers who don't think this we have us to do the quality care. Some of what we do is come into care. But we really highly specialize in that space, and that's what makes us different. That's pretty much what we do around the quality care. So yeah, from here, thanks everyone to join this event. And use the network to talk to each other. And who's next?
Trevor, if you wanted to say anything, no pressure.
Just
Yeah. Oh no. He wasn't prepared. No pressure. So you can like
might need the mic. You can all hear me clearly.
I can hear you clearly, can't understand.
Yeah. I met Patrick pretty much through Grant. Grant used to be my ex-boss at Westmead. And I think Patrick is pretty passionate about what he does. So I work for Westmead and we support the patients within the hospital space, squads, trachea patients, OSA, respiratory failure, etc. So we work close to the hospitals like in America, Prince of Wales, etc. And then when the patients transition from the hospitals to the home, we facilitate that process to a certain extent with regards to our ventilation products. And then we obviously hand them over to the people that specialize in the game, pretty much like Patrick, and of course, Kat and Steph from Class 3 to take over and then manage those patients that have those needs. That's what we do. That's not what we say. Yeah.
It's probably also, you know, I think everybody in this room are really passionate about this space, and that's really one of the goals for us with this networking, and bringing people together that are passionate about this space and want to improve patients and families' lives, but also want to help the hospitals to empty some of their beds.
So Westmead has taken a stance of working with intensive care, Just Breathe, and NEC at the moment in Queensland to then take care with regards to the officer support around these patients. And obviously they specialize in those particular areas to support those patients that go on the astral devices. That's what we do pretty much. So that's that collaboration that they're doing. That's what we do. Thank you.
Do I need a microphone?
No.
My children tell me that all the time. My name is Kitty. I am the New South Wales Clinical Service Manager for intensive care at home. I started off with Patrick as just a nurse. Having worked in the hospital system for over 20 years, and the buzzword person-centered care really didn't. You know, I enjoyed what I did, but it certainly wasn't person-centered care. So I was actually, a bit of a personal story, hopefully I can keep it together. My mum was in palliative care like you in the middle of COVID. They would not discharge her until Monday. So I guess I've been talking out loud on my phone, and up pops Patrick's intensive care home. So I'm sitting there with not much to do, so I applied for a job and he calls me. And I thought, well, maybe I applied for the job accidentally. You know, it wasn't in the right frame of mind. My mum has been made palliative care. And I said to myself, oh, I want to go to the you. So he was like, no, that's not what I do. And I said, oh, okay. He said, you look after intensive care patients at home. And I was looking at my mum and I'm thinking, this is the service I need. This is the service I need right now because she's on palliative care. She's in the middle of Liverpool ICU during COVID, taking up a bed that is needed for somebody else. And she's like, we're all at risk of being there. And I thought, okay, this sounds great. This is amazing. So I started with him. And after 2 years, we started to get a little bit more inquiries. And so he was like, well, do you want to go visit this person? Go visit that person. So then eventually it just trickled down to me being the New South Wales Clinical Service Manager. He did want me to talk about why we're different. I think lived experience is why we're different. Critical care nurses. We think differently. We're constantly assessing. So as I'm looking around the room, I might be thinking, that person didn't get enough winter sun, or maybe they need a blood transfusion. So it's a constant assessment without even touching the patient. And it's a constant risk assessment, which is the biggest problem for chronically sick people in the home. They don't want to go to hospital, and we don't want them to go either. I'll add that we are just a little bit more different because it's very hard to get ICU nurses to come into the community and they look around and they're like, this is the wild, wild west.
right? Because that's what community nursing is essentially. And it's very hard to get an ICU nurse who's structured, diligent, ABCD, to come into an area and sort of, go with the flow. What we employ from top to bottom is trauma-informed care, and I think that is the difference. Because there's two of our clients in New South Wales that we have been told by the previous company, you will not last here. 3 years later, we're still there. I personally believe it's the trauma-informed care. It is very commonplace in mental health. It is not commonplace anywhere else. Even if you look up New South Wales health policies, it's all mental health. But I think everybody needs it. Like I tell Patrick, I even use trauma-informed care with the lady at Coles who's having a meltdown today. Because we don't have any idea where people come from or have been. But, first and foremost, making sure that everyone feels psychologically safe is the key to then changing the trajectory of their outcomes. And that's what makes us different. Let's go.
Alright, so I'll do my little bit of a spiel as well. I have slides because I can't remember. Okay, so I look after the support coordination side of things at the intensive care at home, and now with Rosie just over the last couple of weeks. I guess what makes us a little bit different, this is very wordy, it's more just a prompt for me a lot of the time. We work with intensive care nurses, and when we do our intakes for our participants, we do it with our nursing staff. So I'm not from a nursing background myself. We have nurses to be able to do that. So I'm from a disability background. I understand most things at NDIS, however that landscape is changing very quickly as well. And it's almost a full-time job just trying to keep up with what's going on. So level 2 support coordination is basically designed to assist people to learn to implement their own NDIS plans. This is obviously not a support coordination level that a lot of the people that we're supporting is looking at. Unfortunately, this is the type of funding that a lot of our participants end up with, is level 2 support coordination, if they end up with any at all. So we find that you have to actually advocate for support coordination in a lot of our participants' plans, which a lot of the people that we're supporting who are medically complex aren't ever going to be able to put their own services and supports in place. And finding, specialist physiotherapists or specialist OTs who, specialise in their area and what they need. So Patrick approached me and we had a discussion about that massive gap between, a hospital and home and what that could look like from a support coordination point of view, because we were finding that the NDIS plans were coming out and being more of a representation of the wonderful support that they were getting in the hospital, and sometimes it didn't transfer over properly to community, which is the gap that we are trying to bridge here. So with the level 3 support coordination, the NDIS define this as having to deal with multiple different agencies. A lot of the time they will refer to it actually being government agencies. So it's if you're working with defence and NDIS and forensic services or things like that. It actually doesn't come into, they will say that it's not health and disability, which it actually is, because we are having to deal with the hospitals and find different other streams. If the hospitals don't fund it and the NDIS don't fund it, then who's going to fund it because the need hasn't disappeared. So that's where the support coordination is a little bit different. We don't just operate on those two streams for people. We look outside of the box of supports. Went over that one. So we actually have a model for assisting from hospital in the home, and it's really easy. It's pick up the phone, we'll come to you and work with you on getting the right things in the plan. And it's really that simple. The hospitals will say they're going to need X, Y, and Z within their plans, and then we will say, right, well, the NDIS can fund this, community organisation can fund this, and then we mush it all together and hopefully come up with a really decent funding package for the person before they even leave hospital. And that's our goal. We do advocate quite heavily, especially for some of our guys, to have 24-hour nursing funding, and we're working really, really hard towards that at the moment. It looks like that one of our participants will actually get that in their next plan review. And Patrick has worked with other people in the past as well who has had the 24/7 funding with RNs, and if we can go that next step and having the critical care nurses, then fantastic. We find that the NDIS do get a little bit excited about funding support workers to nurses' positions. Whilst we can't argue this a lot of the time, we will make sure that those support workers are at least trained to the highest level that we can get them trained. So we will source any other organisations that are able to provide that training, because obviously that's what they do. Ideally, we want 24/7 nursing, especially for some of the participants that we have under the scheme. So it's nice and easy. Usually if you call us, it'll be Patrick you speak to first, and then he'll filter it out to the rest of us. So he's more available than the rest of us are, because he lives on the phone. So it'll be Patrick, and then we'll go from there. So there's support coordination. So support coordination comes in under a capacity building model. So we are supposed to build the person's capacity to be able to implement their own NDIS plans, which is extremely difficult. And it takes a bit for us to have a look at that funding and figure out exactly where it sits. Because it is a bit grey. Sometimes we do need allied health professionals to assist us in writing reports that are going to talk to that level of funding. So it's really important about the wording that is in all of our reports to be able to hand to the NDIS. Plan reviews take forever and a day, and we don't want to have to come back because we've missed out on the funding. So we try and make sure that those reports are all reflecting the exact same thing from the different perspective of each allied health practitioner as well, and also nursing if it's coming from the hospital system. So with the clinical care nurses, as I said, we work together with our clinical care nurses. We have just started implementing that we do an intake, all of us together, to make sure that we have the skill set to be able to support the person that we're intaking. This is from a support coordination point of view. If we don't think that we have the skill set for that, we refer on. We don't guard them. We don't repeat. If we don't have the nursing staff to be able to support the person, we also don't hold on to them and wait to say, wait, we'll employ. Because that's not always the case, that we can find amazing clinical care nurses to be able to support the participants within the community environment. So that's pretty much it from me. I'll try to keep it very short and sweet. One thing about what we also do is we're really passionate about advocacy. for our participants, and we want it right. Yep, so we also do NDIS nursing assessments, and they're done by a legal nurse consultant. In a lot of cases, we've had to reference different cases of people who haven't had 24-hour care and what that has looked like for them. In some cases, unfortunately, that has ended in end of life for that person because they didn't have the right care. So this is where we are trying to put our foot down and say no more. So they have every right to be at home, and they have every right to be in the community and to be where they are going to heal best and be in their most comfortable place, and we'll do everything we can to try and get them there. Any questions, comments? Shush, Amanda, we're hungry.
I had a question regarding how many participants does each of your support coordinators manage, and how available are you to?
That's a really great question. So at this very point in time, between two support coordinators, we have 10 clients. We don't have mine and Rosie's at this point in time. We deliberately keep our caseload sizes small because our clients are too complex to get any big. If things get overlooked, people die, and we can't have that happen. So yeah, really great question. I know some support coordinators are looking at 30 and 40 participants, and from a complex point of view, there is absolutely no way that we could support those people.
We are taking on new.
We do.
Though, and if sorry.
Yeah.
But and so if you even know the participant that should have nursing or need the coordinator skills in medical complex scenarios, please do reach out because I think that like Amanda said, it's enough is enough, and so I mean I've had the opportunity to go into I've had the opportunity to go into homes where there's a mother who's cared for her son for 21 years and hasn't had the support that she deserves and that he deserves, and I feel that as a company, even though I'm really fresh, that is the passion is to see that family with the care that they deserve. And I think that's really the reason that we held this event is that we can all work together to achieve that for someone that deserves that. So yeah, I think it's good. So make sure you do more mingling and keep each other's names in the back of your mind. Sometimes you might just hear it as someone's just talking in the supermarket and you're like, oh, I'm really proud to be a part of this company actually. Even though I'm fresh.
We've also been really fortunate to co-coordinate with some companies as well. So they specialise in a particular area, whether it be MS, MND, all that type of a thing, whereas we know our clinical side of things. So there's two, you can have 10 support coordinators if you want to. It would probably get really confusing if you had 10 and who was doing what, but stranger things have happened, I suppose. So we have, we work very closely with a participant in Victoria who has NND. So we work with MND Victoria on that. We co-coordinate. There's been a couple of other things that we've had to go in and assist on the consulting side of things before the person has come out and to the hospital to make sure that it's right. Some of that stuff is not always charged. We just want to make sure that it's right and that these people are supported in the best way that we possibly can. Yep. So that's my spiel.
Sorry, I have another question.
Yes, no.
Sorry, I was late to the party.
Yeah, that's fine.
But how complex is your participants? Like, what is the level of complexity that you guys manage and work with? Because
Yeah, so from a support coordination point of view, our probably most complex person was the 21-year-old participant that Rosie was referring to, who requires a lot of care, so it's 24 hours a day, whether that's supplied by mum or through the funded package. Denise can actually talk more to that because it's
ventilated, intractable seizures, GI issues, you name it, every system is affected.
what about like from the on the lower end, how independent, like or how sort of less complex
Yep.
can they be?
So we have a participant that we support for support coordination as well as nursing care who has uncontrolled diabetes. So we assist that person to be able to take their insulin and take their blood sugars. And that can happen, sometimes it has to be 4 times a day, depending on where things are at. Sometimes it's once a day. And medication management as well for that person. Yeah. So it's quite a big spectrum. Yep.
In terms of areas or suburbs in Sydney that you can cover?
What areas in Sydney can we cover?
Any area really? Well, we've gone as far as the crazy CBD route that we've done. We provide the fly in, fly out, or sample walk out, 24 hours. So I argue we are location independent. Right? As long as we can find staff, the location
Even if
doesn't
you
really
can't
matter.
find staff with flight.
Let's go to the funding step, but you know, again, it's probably also part of our skill set.
If we need to fly in, fly out, or sample walk out, how is that funded and how do we negotiate with the funding body?
So the way we see it is most things are possible, we just have to work out how.
This is a question that might be valuable. If, like, we were to meet a participant in our travel all months and they were receiving nursing care, what would the criteria be for us to think, maybe we need to organise a nursing assessment? So what
That's a very good question. You know, we would probably need to look at clinical summaries, hospital discharge summaries, and then hear from the family or from medical support worker agency what are the issues. Is the client going back to hospital all the time? You know, one of the sort of starting points for us is often, is the client at home already? Are they going back to hospital all the time? That's probably a starting point. Or they are in hospital and they can't be discharged.
I mean, we can assist in freeing up the beds in the hospital for people that can be at home, then we are more than happy to assist in doing that as well. It doesn't have to be, you know, we don't have to be the nursing agency, we don't have to be the support coordination agency. It doesn't, we do the consulting and put the best person in the place for the job as well.
Sorry, then when it comes to what the patient needs from equipment point of view,
Mhm.
do you help with that as well?
Yep. A lot of the time they'll come with their scripts if they're coming from the hospital anyway. Obviously it needs to come in with the OTs and things like that. So your community OTs will tend to do those referrals. But when it comes to organising the equipment, drop-offs and things like that, Just Breathe is fantastic. So we've used Just Breathe a couple of times for a few of our participants, and they can see the urgency within it and have delivered those items as quickly as we possibly can get them out, which has been fantastic.
But we're probably much more hands off than we think with equipment. Most of the time it's always there.
Yeah, it's more replacement sort of stuff that we're probably having to contact, so something broken or.
Even if you don't have the VRSS in other states, you know, most of the time equipment is there.
Yeah. Well, thank you all very much for coming. So dinner will be at 6:30, which is like 3 minutes away. So please feel free to continue with your networking, and thank you all so much. This has helped our networks expand. We have so many more people that we can contact now for when we need to be referring services out. And if everyone has a business card, there's a bowl over on the table there, and we're going to do a bit of a draw for a bottle of wine. You're just not allowed to open it on the premises, I think. No scooting the bottle of wine on the floor, okay?
do you think it would be worth everyone just quickly introducing?
Yeah, we can do that. Are you guys happy with that? Yeah.
I guess what you stage right is like maybe up the room now.
So who are you? Lady Grace, keep talking.
I'm Rosie, support coordinator Sydney. I'm Bonnie Lakeman, the Clinical Director of Vitalis Health.
I'm Bella, I'm one of those community coaches, which was me that I'm joint participant in both of them.
I'm Hale Lance, and I'm a cardiac solutions care.
I'm Amy, I'm the roster manager for intensive care at home.
Thank you all, Mary.
I'm Sarah, I work as a business manager for Altita Consulting Services. We are a NBS provider, we do veterans home care, we do allied health. Over to the big boss.
I'm Kat, I'm an occupational therapist. Yeah, pretty much what Masana said, we can give her
Also the director of Altita. It's very important to say. Yes, yes, she's the principal occupational therapist. She's wonderful.
Hi everyone, I'm Matt. I'm the Director of Public Health Community Health Practice, and we are a community nursing
We can't hear there, guys. We can't hear there.
Sorry, I'm Colin, and I am also the Director of Community Health Practice.
I'm Juan, I'm a psychologist, specialized in cognitive and neurological disorders. And I have my own practice with
He does amazing reports for NGOs.
whatever you need.
Oh, look out. You're the guy that we need for all those reports.
Last year, I was an assistant director in the NGA.
Ah.
I know the bit of cases there, that's why I was very
Oh, you're definitely the man.
for that one, I had to report to that one to get more familiar to explain something that been called by the NGA as an expert to valid.
Yeah, mine understands what they need. Then you know, like, you understand how the evidence works. It's been very helpful to me in the past. That's amazing, a good contact. Fantastic, thank you.
I'm Lisa, I'm an occupational therapist, and I'm the director of Momentum OT. We do eye care, NDIS, aged care, CTP care, I'm Dana, I'm an occupational therapist as well, and I work with Lisa at Momentum OT, and I'm one of the team leaders.
I'm Martin, I'm a physiotherapist. I'm the director of Move Healthcare, so we provide community physio for both Sydney and Wollongong.
Yeah, and I can vouch for Martin to report writing and
Hello, I'm David. I'm a director at GIA Health. Our service provided to NGOs, which provide communities and
My name is Nathan.
Sorry,